Hey, everybody. Welcome back. It's daytime again. I like the lighting that I get from this. Haven't recorded a video for a little while because I've been really busy canceling all of my trips. So it started off with canceling local domestic travel, and now it's, of course, moved into canceling all international travel. So as a frequent traveler who travels all the time, so more than 50%, sometimes 100%, sometimes just coming into my place to, wash the clothes and then I'm heading out again. For me, this is the exact opposite. So right now I'm supposed to be in Denver. On Saturday, I'm supposed to be in Frankfurt and then Heidelberg, and that's canceled. So I'm grounded. So are you probably. The reason I canceled Denver is just because we don't know what's going on in the US. We know it's going to be a mess pretty soon. Probably within 2 weeks, we're going to see, the scale of what we see in Italy in the US, which is going to be terrible. So I don't want to get caught there. And then, the flight back, I could just drive back from the US. So I wasn't too worried. I was more worried about just getting infected there, I think. And then for Germany, really like Germany. I really wanted to go there. And, I've been sitting on the fence with it for a long time. But then with Italy so close, and the strain and the strain of the virus in Italy seems to be, I've heard it's a different strain. I've heard it's more deadly. We're definitely seeing more deaths there. And so that's very concerning. So that's why I canceled Germany. Was, they've only got, according to the Johns Hopkins map that I've got on the wall there, they've only got, I think, under 2,000 infections, which in the grand scheme of things is not a lot, really, right? But however, they're so close to Italy that I expect that number to change pretty quickly. And then I don't want to get stuck necessarily in Germany. Well, of any places, I wouldn't mind getting stuck in Germany. But however, I think everything would be closed for the most part, right? Like, pubs are not going to be much fun. So that's what made me go that route. And the really sad thing is now I'm looking at what we're going to do in the future, and it doesn't look good for the next few months at least. So maybe there's going to be some turnaround in the summer. Maybe this will be seasonal. Maybe not. We don't know. What we're waiting for right now is for this virus to basically sweep the world and see how that turns out. It's very reactionary. We're just kind of letting it do its thing in most places in the US and in Canada. I don't see us doing very much at all to prevent mass chaos. And it's really weird, right? Like, for some certain degree, I've been in denial because I don't want to believe that I can't travel anymore, because I do enjoy going to some neat places. And so I've been on the fence with canceling some of my trips. And, I'm going to be out some money, of course, as well. But that really wasn't the biggest concern. The biggest concern was just, do I cancel or not? Because that's going to mess up everybody's schedule and things like that. And so, yes, I've been in denial a little bit, but I've woken up. And I've always kind of known that, okay, this is going to be a big deal. This is going to impact markets. This is going to impact businesses. This is going to impact the way that we live for years to come. But even now, there's people in senior roles, saying that this is not going to be that bad. This is not, just the flu and things like that. And that's going to cause us all a lot of problems, right? So in Canada and the US, we don't see schools moving towards, school from home. Some of them are probably not set up that way. So that's going to be a problem. Everybody's going to go out on spring break right now, get infected within those 2 weeks, which is perfect timing, right? All out with their friends, all traveling, all bringing that back into those contained spaces, that are very densely populated. And that's going to result in a pretty massive outbreak, really quick spread. Because with the kids, they're not necessarily going to get really sick from this. We've seen, right? Their symptoms are barely noticeable in some cases, but they are carriers. So they're going to bring that home to mom and dad and maybe grandma and grandpa, right? Which is not going to be good. And so that's the big concern right there, right? And then how are the kids going to feel if they find out that they contributed to the demise of grandma or grandpa, right? And so from a psychological factor as well, that's really bad. So you'd think that as a society we'd be pretty keen to prevent that, but nope, not so much. So there's lots of things I could complain about, and actually I probably will. So I was going to say I won't, but of course I will. So I can't travel. Everything's canceled, like 100% now. In the places that I was going to go, some of the offices, some of the locations, we're seeing infections. So probably the best thing I could have done. I'm still regretting not going to Germany. But hey, look, I bought one of these down the street. This is not a replacement. It's not the same. So I won't even eat it, actually. So what's going to happen next for travel, right? For those of you that are traveling, some of you may still choose to travel depending on where you're going. I would recommend not to go on a cruise ship. If you thought that was a good idea before, yeah, probably not, right? I don't know where's safe to travel anymore. Maybe Alaska. Kazakhstan has no infections, so maybe that's a safe place, but you're surrounded by places that are, except for Russia. Speaking to Russia pretty much every day, people over there saying, yeah, no, there's no problem here. Hard to believe that there's no problem. And if there's not now, which maybe there's not, right? It's a pretty big area. So maybe there's not, maybe they're doing a great job, but I would expect there will be soon. And I'm planning to go there in May. So that's going to be difficult. But hopefully this rips through, and it's like pulling off a Band-Aid. Maybe it goes through the population, creates that firewall of people that have already been infected, and then we have a lower chance of getting it. Maybe that'll happen, right? So we'll see. I think that the scary rates that we see, especially in Italy, right? Watching Italy, because they have one of the best healthcare services in the world. So you'd think that they would be able to handle this pretty well. But the number of deaths are alarming. A lot of people are talking about what do they call it? The mortality rate. And occasionally when you get somebody who knows what they're talking about, they'll talk about the fatality case ratio or something like that, which is really, to me, what I'm more interested in. Whenever somebody says mortality rate, I generally assume they don't know what they're talking about. So the numbers they give me don't really matter. Because what that means, and correct me if I get this wrong, but what that means is the number of people that die from this virus over the number of people in the population. That's not what I want to know, right? To me, that's kind of useless information, and that number is going to be very low, which makes it sound totally safe, right? So, because if you say, oh, like 0.1% of the people die from this virus of the whole population, why would you want to know that, right? What I want to know is how many people die from this that get infected. So, and I believe that's the, what is that? The fatality case rate or case fatality rate or something like that. So look it up, but that's what you want to hear. So, and a lot of the epidemiologists that talk about this, or the virus experts, virus hunters, or whatever they are, that's quite often the term that they will use. And I think that we have to get our terms right when we're talking about these things. What does it mean when they're saying these different rates, right? And so right now it looks like 20% or 15% or around there of the people who get this usually have some additional complications. That's usually pneumonia, and then it usually moves into maybe you get an infection in your lungs, and then the lungs fill up with fluid because of the pneumonia. And there's all these different things that happen: crystallization of the lungs, scar tissue in the lungs, difficulty to breathe, and it just gets worse from there. So doesn't sound very good. That's a pretty high percentage. And they're saying that the older you are, the more at risk you are, which of course, sure, makes sense. And they're saying that if you have other complications, you're also at risk as well. Sure, makes sense. Like what, right? So would that mean if you've got diabetes? Yeah, I think that's on the list. If you're, have a pacemaker or some heart condition, yeah, probably. If you're obese, I think so, right? So, okay, so what percentage of the population now are we at? And just those three, I haven't even got into like other stuff, right? 50% of the population, right? So, and they're saying, okay, well, if you're 70 years old or 60 years or older, right, then you go up as far as risk. But there's lots of people that are young that have, I say lots. I don't have a number, but I've seen people dying that are quite young, right? Less for sure, but definitely some. And okay, you're saying, well, yeah, Rob, well, the flu kills some young people. I don't think it does that much, right? And it'd be interesting to see that comparison. I would like to see a side-by-side scale of the flu and of this and of the age categories. And let's just assume they're all healthy people. Let's factor out people with underlying issues, which is what the news keeps talking about, people who pass away. So let's just compare apples to apples here, right? I think that would be a nice way to do it. What I can tell is that Italy looks terrible, right? You don't close down like Italy did in the free world, right? It's one thing to do it under a dictatorship, but in the free world, to close all your borders, yeah, it's got to be pretty massive, right? So yeah, I'm pretty worried about the whole thing. So that's why I didn't go to Germany and Denver, because I'm just worried about that and what that's going to look like. I still don't think we're getting the full picture. It's interesting, actually, the developments that we've seen, because now they're saying you should wear masks. There was some messaging today where they said you should wear masks. It's like, really? Well, if that's true, the time to buy those would have been what, 3 months ago now, and now there's no chance. So the whole mask thing is bizarre, because we're seeing, who was it now, with Germany and Switzerland? Switzerland was getting some masks that shipped through Germany, and they got ripped off, and Germany kept them or something like that, right? Just all sorts of nasty going on. So it's getting really exciting. We're in Canada here, we're pretty spread out. So I kind of think of ourselves as the same equivalency as far as density and things like that as Russia, right? And Russia seems to be doing pretty well. I think that they're doing a bunch of different things there that we probably won't do in Canada, but I think because of our land space and our lack of population density, that we may do not too bad. So we'll see. Hey, Clairvoyant, I just see you had a question there. Yeah, I'm not going to Denver. It's relatively safe right now, but people in the exact same office that I was going to are infected, so I'm glad I didn't. Yeah, so I'm not uncomfortable being locked down. So as you can see, probably a little bit, I've got lots of gear behind me. This whole room is like my gear room office, and so I have lots of stuff to do. I've got Netflix to watch. I've got audiobooks to listen to. I've got exercise room to go work out in. And plus I'm working from home now. This week I've worked 3 days in a row from home. Usually it's just 1 day a week from home. So I really want to test that out, and I'm getting my whole kind of office set up so that I can just continue to work from home once we say we're going to do that in the office. And I think ironing out those bugs, if you do work for a company, that's the direction we're all going to go. We're all going to start working from home if you can. Some industries have a hard time doing that, but if you have an office job like me, I'm setting myself up. I got my little speakerphone going, and I was testing that out today, and that works pretty good. I got another monitor set up with my laptop. So, I'm starting to kind of get the feel for it, so I'm not losing any productivity that way. So I think that it's going to be, we have to iron out the processes for how we're going to operate when we're doing this. Because if we're going to stay at home for the next month or two and try to let this fire kind of burn through, and I often compare it to a forest fire, right? Because it's going to just burn through, and if you're in its way, you're going to get burned. If you can say, like, take shelter or get out of the way, and it burns through, then you can stand up and go, okay, so now everything's burnt. Maybe it's not going to get burnt again, and I'm not going to get infected. So that's kind of what I'm planning to do. So if I can last a few months without getting infected, maybe I won't, right? I'm not waiting for a vaccine because I think that realistically we have a lot of hopeful talk right now, but a year minimum. And I would be surprised if we see it within a year, really. And so I think it's good to hope. And there's a lot of talented people working on it, but I don't think it's going to be in time for most of the world. So there's estimates out there that says, 40 to 70% of the world will get infected in this year. And I totally believe that. I think that it's hard to say a percentage, but I would guess most of us will, right? So yeah, Aaron says New York's really close to me. Yeah, New York is going to be problematic, right? Any densely populated city, because it's kind of like Wuhan, right? Where you've got the high rises, you've got the air circulation. This virus travels really quickly through the air. There was an article where a bus driver was infected, and there was a passenger many meters back, more than 1 meter, obviously, right? And that person got infected, and they traced that down to the bus driver as the source. So I guess on a bus, the air probably is moving backwards as the momentum of the bus moves forward. But still, it does show us that we were saying before, 1 meter distance and you're fine. Just don't shake hands and you're fine. Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think that it's if you're in the same building as somebody, or a house, so you still have a good chance of getting infected. And I want to talk about that as well, because I have 5 people in this house right now, and I have 2 of them are kids. And what I'm expecting is my kids are going to go to work or go to school after spring break, and then they're going to bring it back. And I won't even know, because they may not show any symptoms. And that's based off what we've seen so far. So what I'm looking at there is trying to isolate where they are and where I am. And it's going to make it weird for the family, because if I don't want to get infected by them, they're going to be infected for weeks, right? How am I going to do that? It's almost impossible. And I think that, so what my plan is right now is, if I was to move a couch into this room, have the window open, close the ventilation system, and then, basically for the most part, live out of this room, and then occasionally go to the kitchen or the washroom, but really watch my hygiene when I do that, then maybe I won't get infected from my kids. If you've got a better idea, let me know. I mean, it's when you're within a house, in an apartment, even more difficult, right? So I'm not sure how that's going to work, but we'll see, step at a time. I've got a lot of food put away. A lot of people are buying toilet paper. I have no idea why. I bought some toilet paper to last me about a month or 2, just because everybody else is buying it and it's running out. So I don't want to run out and then try to go to the store and not be able to get any. So you can order it on Amazon. It's still readily available, and they deliver. So I don't understand. People really like the Costco toilet paper, I think, because that's just getting smashed. All right. Other question. Thoughts about being able to get reinfected. Yeah. So there's a bunch of discussion on that. And yeah, I'm really concerned about the reinfection. So I'm worried about the first initial infection, what that's going to be like. So 2 things. One, I'm worried about my initial infection, and what I think would be the best thing to do is either get infected right now, get it out of the way while our hospitals are still able to help you in case it becomes a big deal and you have complications, or you have to wait, because in a few weeks the hospitals are going to be super busy with everybody. And if you're my age, and I'm about 50, if I go to the hospital and I'm fairly healthy, they're going to deprioritize me, right? And they're going to be working on people they think might pass away first. So I'm going to be in the hallway. So I don't want to have that, because I may have very serious conditions, right? So yeah, so either now or we have to wait a long time. So, and I don't know how to get it now. So I think my only choice is to just wait and try not to get infected. So the reinfection, I've heard out of China that people that were getting infected for the second time got it a lot worse. And that was early days. That was about a month or 2 ago that they were looking at that. And they're doing some amazing things in China as far as trying to help people recover, as far as lung transplants and all sorts of things like that. And they have a lot of experience. So what comes out of there as far as what they're seeing, I don't necessarily trust the numbers. What they're seeing, I do pay attention to. I don't always 100% trust. But the reinfection was a big concern there, and they were saying that if you did get reinfected, it tended to be a lot worse. So you were now in the 15% of people that had major problems. However, what I initially thought was, well, maybe they just didn't fully recover yet. Maybe that was it. Yeah, so, and that could be true. I don't think there's a definitive answer to that yet. The other thing that I'm thinking about is there's 2 strains to this, it seems like, and the one in Italy, it looks like it's the bad one, the same as what we saw in Wuhan. And so a lot of people are saying you're either going to get the good one or the bad one, and maybe that's true. I've seen some details on that. So, maybe you can get one and then you can get the other. Maybe you're not immune at that point. So when they do make a vaccine, it's going to be interesting. Do they make 2 vaccines? Do they make one that covers everything? So there's a lot of questions still around that. But yeah, the answer is yeah, I'm worried about reinfection for sure, because once I get it, then I'm free, right? In a way, like if I get through it without any issue, then theoretically, then I'm free to travel the world again, right? So getting infected, one of the things I'm worried, well, many things I'm worried about. Sometimes I'm swinging back and forth because I'm thinking, well, a lot of people don't have symptoms. A lot of people just have a mild illness. 80%, let's say, just going to ballpark it. So what am I worried about, right? I should be going to travel. But, so the percentage still is not good if you do get infected. It's definitely not the flu. So you definitely have some concerns there. The other thing is that you might have complications. So that's what most people worry about. So I may die, right? So that's one thing. But even if I don't die, and I think this is more likely that you don't actually die. But again, coming out of China, they talked a lot about this, the scarring of your lungs and the crystallization of your lungs. And we're seeing videos and pictures of that. And I think that from the severe pneumonia, I think that is quite possible. I have, as you can tell, I'm still coughing from a cough that I had about 2 months ago. And coughs tend to linger with me. I had pneumonia when I was a kid. It was terrible. Like I really did not like it. I was delirious, and it was probably one of the most nasty things I've had. And as a result of that, I'm guessing that I may have had some damage to my lungs, possibly, because when I talk and I'm still recovering from this cough, it irritates it even more. And it seems to linger with me longer than other people. So the life-shortening impact of catching this and having the damage, I think that is more probable for someone like me than just dying, right? So hopefully not, but that's what I'm personally worried about, and that's why I'm mitigating my risk by just not traveling. Plus, everybody's telling me not to travel. The health officials here are saying don't travel. My company is saying don't travel. So that many people saying don't travel, I tend to believe it. So Aaron says, so it's the people that are infected, not the air. Yes, I didn't mean to imply that the air is infected. I think that we're transmitting it through the air, and that's a tricky thing. I think that we're seeing that the transmission, both airborne and then on surfaces, and both are really tricky to mitigate, right? So if you're going to go to the pub, the server who's serving you the beer, you got to worry about that. If you're eating anything out, right? Let's say you go anywhere to eat, any restaurant, any fast food, if anybody on any of those shifts were sick and sneezed or coughed or even breathed on stuff, then it could be technically transmitted to you. And there's a study on how long it lives on surfaces, and it seems like, days. So that's what I'm worried about. So that's why I bought a little bit of food, so that I don't have to go to restaurants. I don't have to go to pick up food anywhere. I'm going to make all my food here. There is one place where I'm going to go to get some additional meat products, like a deli. And so what I'll do is I'll just wipe down the food packaging once I get it. So that's kind of my plan. Anything that comes to my door right now, I'm going to wipe down with a disinfectant wipe. If it's in a cardboard box, like from Amazon Prime, I'll cut it open while it's outside with my gloves on, throw the cardboard into the recycling bin, take the products out, and then I'll wipe the products down with an alcohol wiper, spray them down, and then I'll bring them inside the house. That's my plan anyway. So we'll see if that works. Clairvoyant says, my biggest fear is that I get infected and then transmit it to my mother and father who live with, who are both 70 and have, I think that's comorbidities, complications maybe. I think that, yeah, anybody who's older, so your parents, your grandparents, anybody like that. So my mom is in her 80s. She doesn't live with me, but she lives fair ways away. But I'm very nervous about that. So anybody that's visiting her, I don't want her to go out. I don't want her to visit anybody. I don't want anybody to visit her. But she's 80 years old, right? So the social interaction is very important for her. So she's high risk, and I really would like to make sure that she's taken care of. She's living on her own, which I think is a plus, is a really good thing. That's something that I don't have to worry about. If she was in a home, or if she was living with a bunch of people, I would want to take her probably out of that, and then I guess I would have her live with me. But again, how much safer is she with me? I'm not sure. I would say probably safer than in a home, because as we've seen, this kind of rips through those pretty quickly. So I think, yeah, Clairvoyant, I think you're probably safer that way. I would just be careful what you're bringing into the house, right? And so just watch out for that. You need to set up protocols. And so with my kids right now, what I'm doing is I'm setting up these new rules. And when they come into the house, the first thing they do is they go wash their hands. They take off their jacket at the door and they leave it at the door. They don't bring those things into the house. And so if it's on the surface of the back of their jacket or something like that, it's staying, relatively close to the door. So we're doing a bunch of things like that. And I'm trying to think of more of those sort of things that we can do to reduce our risk, right? So it's going to be extremely difficult, but at least we can do some of those things. And yeah, so it looks like it's going to be a long haul. It looks like I don't expect to travel again probably for at least 3 months. So even domestic, right? Even within the US, I probably won't get on a plane for another 3 months. So that's going to give me lots of time to edit all the videos that I've got for you and do a bunch of product reviews. I've got luggage, I've got backpacks, I've got all sorts of electronic gadgets, which I'm going to do. And, sorry, my phone's ringing. But so I'm going to do all those and get those up so you guys can take a look. And then as we progress with this virus, I'm also going to provide you with additional videos. If I do get infected, then I will document all of that and provide it to you as well to show you how that progresses. And yeah, so that's about it. So should I go eat this thing now? I don't think I want to. Yeah. Oh, I got another question here. Do you think the Western democracies are going to have harder time getting a hold of this than the Asian countries? So the good thing about China, well, it sounds weird when I say it that way. I mean, a dictatorship can do almost anything, right? So what we saw there was they realized how serious it was going to be. I think their leadership was probably thinking, this is going to really kill our economy. And because China cares a lot about their ability to produce and to become wealthy. And everybody does, right? But I really see they're quite driven that way. And so they must have realized that as a manufacturing powerhouse, if all your workers are dead or sick, you're going to have a problem. I mean, bring in the robots, right? Which they don't all have. So that's an issue. So they locked everything down. And if you lock everything down like what they did, then of course that's effective. And we see from the numbers, and maybe they're fake, but I think they do show some hint at what's actually happening, if not 100% correct, of course. But it does look like what they've done there is having some effect. They're now sending people back to work. So what I expect in China is what we call the second wave. So it's ridiculous, really, because they seem to have kind of stopped it. If you look at cities like Beijing and Wuhan and all these other major cities in China, they're ghost towns right now. But as people go back to work, of course, because they can't stop people from working forever, otherwise that's going to be just as bad, if not worse. but we should expect this second wave to roll through, and other cities there to get infected. And then what do they do? Do they do the same thing again, or how do they do that? So they have to evolve how they do the isolation or the quarantine, and I think they need to compartmentalize it. Is that the word? So that they can focus on specific areas, and then let other areas work. I don't know. I don't know how it's going to work. How does it compare to democratic societies, especially in North America? Well, in North America, we won't be able to do that so much, right? We'll say work from home. We'll say school from home. We'll say maybe please don't go out, but we're not gonna. I mean, the National Guard will roll in. We'll declare, martial law, and the military will back up the police, and we'll declare a state of emergency in every state, and that's typically done, I think, to get federal support. So we'll do all of those things, which sound good, but we won't. I don't think we'll be quarantining whole cities like we saw with Wuhan. It won't work on a number of different levels, I don't think, right? But we could start to put more pressure on that, I think, and we could say, okay, we're going to give you a ticket if you're out, and have a curfew and stuff like that. We could probably do something like that, but I doubt we will. So far, we just don't seem to care for the most part, right? And if we did, we'd be testing way more. We'd be doing a bunch of things way more. And I was really hard on one of my videos on the CDC and other organizations like the WHO. And I still think that they have a lot to answer for. But I also think that, of course, their funding got cut back and things like that. So it's a bigger problem. And I also think that the cost structure for individuals, I like the pay-per-use model. Don't get me wrong. I think that's, for me in Canada, we have a 2-tiered system where I can go to the kind of like we call it the free healthcare, even though my taxes are super high. So it's technically not free, right? It's just available to everybody. And so I can go to that, or I can pay, and instead of waiting 6 months, I can go and pay and get whatever I need today. And it's going to be done by somebody who probably is better than on the common healthcare. So there's that. But for testing in Canada, I'm not going to have to pay. But in the US, I think that you'll have to pay for testing. I'm not sure, but it sounds that way. It sounds like there could be a cost. And if there is, people are going to be resistant to getting testing done. And I think that could result in some issues. So, because what we want to know is who's infected, so we can start to put more effort into those areas in quarantine. But again, like it's kind of almost pointless now as well. Like all these indicators now, in some ways, are pointless, because it's like you have these little meters in the ocean that are measuring the tectonic plates of the world, and you're looking for the earthquake that's going to trigger a tsunami, right? And so I think I hear some beeps, right? I think the tsunami might be coming. I think we're going to have an earthquake. No, we've had the earthquake, right? That's done. Okay, that part's over. So we know that the tsunami is on its way. We don't have to look at sensors anymore. We know that every hospital in every state and every province is going to get overwhelmed within weeks, if not, months, if not weeks, right? So does testing really matter at this point? I'm not sure. But yeah, it would have been nice to contain it through testing. So yeah. So I think that's pretty much all I've got to share with you today. Kids are going to go on spring break at the end of this week for 2 weeks. And I think that's going to be kind of the next phase of this whole thing. So, if you've got kids, keep an eye on them. If you've got the, elderly dependents, keep a closer eye on them and really talk to them about their habits, keep them home, keep them safe, keep them fed, keep them entertained, because that's where the biggest risk is. So, yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. Stay safe. See you later. Safe travels.